We live in a world that rewards conformity, where many of us wear the mask of niceness to be accepted, to avoid conflict, and to gain approval. Yet, beneath this mask, something vital withers away. Nietzsche warned us, too much softness is not virtue, but weakness disguised as kindness. And if we are to rise, to live fully, we must strip away this mask and awaken the fire inside. We have been told since childhood that to be nice is to be good. That, to smile, to agree, to soften our voice, is the highest virtue. But let us be honest with ourselves for a moment. How much of this niceness comes from genuine strength and how much from fear? The fear of being disliked, the fear of rejection, the fear of standing alone. The mask of niceness is heavy, yet we wear it willingly. We hide our true thoughts behind it, our raw impulses, our hunger, our frustrations. Why? Because we believe that if we please everyone, they will reward us with love. But what happens? We discover that being nice does not make us respected, it does not make us desired, it makes us invisible. When we wear the mask, we silence ourselves. We laugh at jokes that do not amuse us. We nod at opinions we secretly despise. We give more than we wish to give, and we swallow our resentment in silence. And slowly, we forget who we really are, because the mask begins to feel like our only face. This is not kindness, this is submission. True kindness comes from abundance, from strength, from a spirit so alive that it can afford to give. But niceness, the mask, is the opposite. It is weakness painted as virtue. It is a performance we put on, hoping to avoid conflict, hoping to be accepted. And yet, in trying to be everything to everyone, we become nothing to ourselves. The world does not reward the man who hides behind his mask. People sense it, your uncertainty, your quiet desperation, your eagerness to please. They may smile at you, they may take what you offer, but deep inside they do not respect you. Why? Because they know you do not respect yourself. You have traded authenticity for approval, and approval is cheap. We must dare to ask, who are we without the mask? What would we say if we did not fear judgment? What choices would we make if we did not need everyone's permission to exist? These are terrifying questions, because the mask has been with us so long, it feels safer than our own skin. But the moment we begin to strip it away slowly, painfully, we taste something intoxicating: freedom. And freedom is the enemy of the nice guy. Because freedom means that some people will not like you. Freedom means you will provoke, you will offend, you will disappoint. But it also means you will finally live in truth, no longer contorting yourself to fit the fragile expectations of others. Do not misunderstand, this is not a call to cruelty, nor to abandon kindness. It is a call to authenticity, to act from the depths of your will rather than from the fear of disapproval. To speak what burns inside you, even if your voice trembles. To show the world the face beneath the mask, raw and unpolished. Yes, it will be frightening. Yes, some will turn away, but those who remain will not remain because you bent yourself to please them. They will remain because they recognize your strength, your authenticity, your truth, and that is worth infinitely more than shallow approval. The mask of niceness has protected you, but protection is not life. A cage may keep you safe, but it also keeps you small. To step beyond it is to risk, to bleed, to face rejection. But only then do we begin to breathe. Only then do we begin to live as creators of our own existence, not as shadows performing for others. Niceness is not the highest virtue. It is the easiest disguise. And until we tear it away, we will never know the power that waits behind it. We do not notice the bars until we try to move against them. The prison of approval is invisible, yet it dictates our every step. How many choices in our lives have we made, not because we wanted them, but because we feared the disapproval of others? We study what pleases our parents. We laugh at what pleases our friends. We live in ways that please society, and slowly, almost without realizing it, we are no longer living for ourselves, we are living for an audience. This is the cruel irony. The nice man believes he is free because no one scolds him, no one rejects him. But in truth, he is more enslaved than anyone, for his chains are tied not to a wall but to the eyes of others. He measures his worth by their smiles, his choices by their nods, his very existence by their acceptance. His soul is no longer his own. Approval is a seductive drug. Each smile, each pat on the back, each "you're such a good person," they feel warm for a moment. But they fade quickly, leaving behind a hunger that demands more. The more approval you receive, the more you fear losing it. And so you bend further, shrink smaller, give away more of yourself. You become addicted to the illusion of being loved, without ever tasting the reality of being respected. But here lies the truth that terrifies the prisoner. Approval can never be enough. No matter how much you collect, it will never fill the emptiness inside, because it is not rooted in who you are. It is rented, not owned. Borrowed from others, it can be taken away the instant you stop performing. The moment you displease them, the approval vanishes, and with it, your fragile sense of self. What is left of a man who lives only for approval? Nothing but a hollow reflection of what others wish him to be. He may seem gentle, he may seem agreeable, but beneath his smile lies resentment, because deep down he knows he has betrayed himself. His kindness was never a gift, it was a transaction. And when the world fails to pay him back with the love he longs for, bitterness grows in the shadows of his heart. To step out of this prison is not easy. It feels like walking into a storm without shelter. The first time you refuse to nod along. The first time you say, "No, I disagree." The first time you act not to be liked, but because it is your truth, you will feel exposed, raw, vulnerable. And yet, that pain is not weakness. It is the birth of strength. For what is strength, if not the ability to stand firm while the crowd shakes their head? What is freedom, if not the courage to be misunderstood, even hated, for the sake of living authentically? The prisoner of approval cannot know these things, for he has built his life on the shifting sands of others' opinions. But once you break the bars, once you endure the sting of rejection and realize it does not kill you, you begin to glimpse the vast sky of your own power. Imagine for a moment, living a life where your choices are your own, where your voice speaks not what others wish to hear, but what burns in your chest. Where you act not to gain applause, but because you will it so. This is no longer the life of a prisoner, this is the life of a creator. And here is the paradox. The less you chase approval, the more respect you earn. People may not always like you, but they will sense something rare, someone who does not bow to the eyes of the crowd. Someone who carries himself with an authority that no smile or nod can grant. That is the kind of man others follow, the kind of spirit others trust. Not the prisoner of approval, but the one who walked free of it. At the core of every human being burns a force restless, silent, yet undeniable. It is not the desire to be liked, nor the craving for comfort. It is something deeper, older, raw. Nietzsche called it the will to power, and until we awaken to it, we remain shadows of ourselves. The will to power is not about controlling others, nor about domination in the shallow sense. It is not the tyranny of the bully, nor the manipulation of the cunning. It is something far greater, the inner drive to shape life itself. It is the force that pushes the seed to split the earth, the storm to shatter the silence, the human spirit to rise beyond what it once was. We mistake it often. We confuse it with hunger for approval, with greed, with the endless chase of possessions. But those are not power, they are substitutes for the real thing. True power does not beg for recognition. True power does not wait for permission. True power creates, declares, and endures. Every nice guy has felt this will at some point, though he has buried it under layers of politeness and fear. He has felt it in his chest when he wanted to say no but forced a smile instead. He has felt it in his bones when he desired something fiercely, but told himself it was selfish to pursue it. He has felt it in the quiet nights, when he wondered why his life felt empty, even though everyone told him he was such a good man. Think of fire. It consumes, but it also illuminates. The will to power is that fire within us. When ignored, it smoulders into smoke, choking us in bitterness. But when embraced, it blazes forth, giving light not only to us, but to all who cross our path. To live by the will to power is to stop existing as a passive receiver of life, and to become an active creator of it. It is to stop asking, "What is expected of me?" and to begin asking, what do I demand of myself? It is to stop fearing the disapproval of others and to start fearing only this, that we might waste our one life behind a mask. The nice man cannot understand this. He believes his virtue lies in shrinking, in yielding, in dissolving his will for the comfort of others. But he does not see that this is not virtue, it is self-betrayal. A man without will is a man without a centre, drifting endlessly in the tides of other people's desires. The will to power whispers to each of us, you are meant to rise. You are meant to step beyond the prison of niceness, beyond the hunger for approval, beyond the safety of conformity. You are meant to shape yourself into something greater than you are today. When the will to power is silenced, it does not vanish. It festers, it coils in the shadows of our hearts, unspoken, unacknowledged, but never gone. This festering force is resentment, and resentment is perhaps the most corrosive poison a soul can swallow. The nice guy knows this poison well, though he may not name it. He gives and gives, but not from strength, he gives from fear, from the desperate hope that his niceness will buy him love. Yet the love he receives is shallow, if he receives it at all, and so, deep inside, he feels betrayed. I did everything right, he whispers to himself. So why does no one see me? Why does no one choose me? Why do they overlook me for those who are bolder, harsher, freer? Resentment is born from this contradiction. Outwardly smiling, inwardly burning, a man bows his head to avoid rejection, but in secret he curses the very people he bends to. He says yes while screaming no inside. He praises what he secretly envies. He applauds the bold while secretly despising them. This duplicity eats away at his spirit until all that remains is bitterness disguised as virtue. But resentment does worse than corrode the heart, it chains the will. Instead of seeking his own path, the resentful man defines himself against others. He does not rise, he waits. He waits for others to fail, to stumble, to be punished. His joy is no longer found in creation, but in the downfall of those he envies. And so, he becomes a spectator in his own life, hoping for others to fall rather than daring to climb himself. When we confront it, resentment becomes a mirror. It shows us the truth, that the life we envy in others could have been our own, if only we had dared to live without the mask. That the respect we crave from the world is impossible until we first respect ourselves. That the power we accuse others of stealing was never theirs, it was ours, given away in silence. To transform resentment is to reclaim this power. It is to stop looking outward with bitterness and to begin looking inward with resolve. Instead of saying, "They have stolen from me," we begin to say, "I have abandoned myself, but I will no longer do so." This is the turning point, where bitterness dissolves into fire and envy becomes fuel for creation. Let us be clear, resentment, left unchecked, destroys. It turns men into cowards, cloaked in politeness, into critics who build nothing, into shadows who despise the light. But resentment faced, named, and transformed, it can ignite the will to power once more. It can drive us to rise, to demand more from ourselves, to live no longer as beggars of approval but as authors of our own existence. There comes a moment when the mask cracks, when the prison walls tremble, when the poison of resentment becomes unbearable. This moment is painful, yet it is also sacred. It is the beginning of authenticity, the birth of a truer self. Authenticity is not a costume we put on. It is the shedding of all costumes. It is the decision to no longer bend our soul for the comfort of others. It is the courage to reveal what we truly feel, what we truly desire, what we truly are, without apology. And this birth is never gentle. It comes with conflict, with loss, with risk. For every time we strip away a false layer, we expose a piece of ourselves that others may reject. But here lies the paradox. Though authenticity may repel some, it draws others with magnetic force. When we dare to be real, we stop attracting those who only liked our mask, and we begin to attract those who see and respect our essence. We lose shallow approval but gain something infinitely greater connection rooted in truth. The birth of authenticity begins with small acts of rebellion, saying no when we mean no, refusing to laugh when something is not funny, speaking our mind even when our voice trembles. Each act feels dangerous, Yet each act chips away at the false identity we have carried for too long. Slowly, we begin to feel alive, not because others finally approve of us, but because we are finally approving of ourselves. To be authentic is to reclaim ownership of our life. It is to say, my worth is not for others to decide. My path is not for others to dictate. My voice is not an echo of the crowd, it is my own. This is terrifying for the man who has lived in masks, because for the first time, he can no longer hide. He must face the world bare, exposed, unarmored. But what he gains in return is immeasurable, the strength of a soul aligned with itself. Niceness hides, authenticity reveals. Niceness suppresses, authenticity expresses. Niceness depends, authenticity creates. And with every authentic step, we move further from the shadows of resentment and closer to the fire of our will. But authenticity is not only about words, it is about action. It is living in a way that reflects who we are, not who we are told to be. It is choosing the career, the relationships, the path that sets our soul alight, even if others shake their heads in disapproval. It is refusing to betray ourselves for the comfort of fitting in. It is daring to live dangerously, because the greatest danger of all is to never live at all. And when authenticity is born, something remarkable happens. Life itself begins to respond differently. Doors open where none existed before. Opportunities emerge where there was once only stagnation. Not because the world suddenly changes, but because we change. We are no longer walking timidly, waiting for permission. We are moving with the force of our will, and the world cannot help but make space for one who walks with such certainty. The birth of authenticity is not easy. It tears, it burns, it shatters illusions. But from those ashes rises something rare and powerful, a life that is truly our own. And once we have tasted it, we will never again settle for the counterfeit sweetness of being merely nice. To be authentic is to reveal yourself, but once revealed, you will inevitably collide with the expectations of others. And here lies the test. Will you shrink back into the mask, or will you embrace the courage to offend? Most people live terrified of this moment. They tiptoe through conversations, careful not to step on anyone's toes. They smile when they disagree, apologize for having needs, soften their words until nothing sharp remains. And why? Because they fear disapproval more than they fear dishonesty. They would rather betray themselves than risk offending someone else. But what is offense, really? It is nothing more than a sign that you are no longer bending yourself into silence. It is the friction that arises when your truth collides with another's comfort. To offend is not to be cruel. It is simply to refuse to live as a ghost. And yet, for the nice guy, the idea of offending is unbearable because his entire existence has been built upon avoiding it. The courage to offend is not about seeking conflict, nor about enjoying cruelty. It is about valuing truth over approval. It is about recognizing that if your words, your choices, your life never upset anyone, then you are not truly living, you are merely conforming. Think of history's great spirits, those who dared to think, to speak, to live differently. Were they universally loved? No, they were ridiculed, condemned, even hated. But they shaped the world because they valued truth over comfort, authenticity over approval. They understood that offense is not the mark of failure, it is the mark of impact. The nice man fears rejection so deeply that he chooses a life of quiet irrelevance, but the authentic man accepts that offense is the price of freedom. He knows that not everyone will agree with him, not everyone will applaud him, and that is precisely what makes his voice his own. When you speak what is real, some will turn away, but those who remain will see you, truly see you. They will respect you not because you tried to please them, but because you dared to be honest. Better to be hated for truth than loved for a lie. This courage requires a shift in perspective. Instead of asking, will they be offended? Ask, is this my truth? If it is, then speak it, live it, embody it, regardless of who frowns. For offense passes, but the cost of self-betrayal lingers for a lifetime. There will be consequences. Some doors will close, some people will leave, but those doors were never truly open, and those people were never truly yours. The ones who stay, the ones who walk beside you, will not stay because you bowed to them. They will stay because they recognize in you a rare force, an authenticity that does not bend. The more willing you are to offend, the less you need to. Because people sense the weight of your presence, the clarity of your boundaries, the sharpness of your spirit. They know you cannot be manipulated by flattery or trapped by guilt. They respect what they cannot control. The courage to offend is the courage to live. Without it, we remain hidden, agreeable, invisible. With it, we become undeniable. From childhood, we are taught to divide the world into two neat boxes, good and evil. Be good and you will be praised. Be evil and you will be condemned. The nice guy clings to this teaching as if it were his lifeline. He thinks that by being endlessly good, endlessly agreeable, endlessly selfless, he will be rewarded with love, respect, and meaning. But reality is far harsher. Life does not care for such simplicity, and people do not admire those who bury themselves beneath it. The truth is that good and evil are chains forged by others to control us. What society calls good often means obedient, compliant, harmless. And what it calls evil is often simply strength, will, individuality, the refusal to conform. The nice guy, desperate to stay in the safe zone of good, cuts off parts of himself, silences his instincts, denies his passions. He amputates his own vitality so that no one will call him dangerous. But in doing so, he also amputates his power. To step beyond good and evil is to awaken to a greater truth, that morality is not fixed, not handed down from the heavens, not carved into stone. It is created by human beings, shaped by the strong to bind the weak. And as long as we cling to this childish division, we remain prisoners of rules that were never ours to begin with. This does not mean we should become cruel, reckless, or destructive. It means we must rise above the narrow cage of good boy morality. We must dare to ask, not, is this good or evil? But, is this mine? Does this reflect my will, my values, my truth? For the highest virtue is not obedience, it is authenticity. The man who lives only to be good becomes predictable, tame, invisible. He is praised, yes, but with the hollow praise one gives to a servant who never disobeys. The man who dares to step beyond good and evil, however, becomes unpredictable, alive, undeniable. He is not blindly moral, he is creative. He does not follow the rules of others, he writes his own. And here lies the secret. Every truly great spirit in history has walked this path. They were called heretics, rebels, even monsters in their time, only to be revered later as visionaries, precisely because they refused to confine themselves within someone else's definition of good. They knew that greatness requires risk, and that risk is always condemned by the small-minded as evil. The nice guy fears being misunderstood, and so he buries his will under the cloak of goodness. But the authentic man accepts misunderstanding as the price of freedom. He knows that those who call him wrong are merely defending their own fragile beliefs. He does not need their approval nor their categories. He lives by a deeper law, the law of his own becoming. To step beyond good and evil is not to abandon morality, it is to become the creator of it. It is to stop asking, what should I do to be liked, and to start asking, what do I will to create in this world? It is to recognize that what the world calls dangerous may in fact be the very force needed to transform it. For only those who dare to step beyond good and evil can taste the true power of life. The rest remain nice, obedient, harmless, forever caged by rules that were never their own. There is a moment in the journey where breaking chains is not enough. We may shed the mask, step out of the prison, silence resentment, and even cast aside the false morality of good and evil, yet freedom alone is not the final goal. Freedom is only the beginning. For once we are free, we must decide what to do with that freedom. And here Nietzsche speaks of the lion. The lion is not a tame creature. It does not live for the approval of others. It does not ask permission to exist. The lion roars, and the world takes notice. The lion claims its territory, defends it fiercely, and moves with unapologetic authority. This is the stage of becoming that every man must pass through if he wishes to leave behind the weakness of the nice guy. This is remained. The lion is the spirit of defiance. It looks at the values imposed upon it and says, "No, I will no longer bow. I will no longer obey simply because you call it good. I will no longer silence myself for your comfort." The lion does not exist to be liked. It exists to be, and that alone terrifies those who live as sheep. This transformation is frightening because to become the lion is to risk conflict. The nice guy has avoided conflict his entire life, bending and softening to escape it. But the lion does not hide from confrontation, it welcomes it, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. For without the roar, without the boundary, without the refusal, we are devoured by those who take advantage of weakness. To become the lion is to claim the right to say no. No to what diminishes us. No to what enslaves us. No to what insults the truth of who we are. Without this no, there can be no authentic yes. For only the man who can refuse with force can also choose with freedom. The lion is not yet the highest form of the spirit. It is not yet the creator of new values, but it is the destroyer of the old, the guardian of the self, the voice that will no longer be silenced. Without the lion, there can be no rebirth, for only through its roar do we clear away the debris of a false life. And here lies the paradox. Though many fear the lion, though they accuse it of arrogance, selfishness, even evil, it is in truth more honest, more alive, more pure than the man who hides behind the mask of niceness. The lion does not pretend, it does not flatter, it does not crawl for scraps of approval. It stands, it roars, it is. This is the stage of transformation where we begin to feel alive in a new way, where we no longer apologize for existing, where we begin to feel our own power coursing through us not as cruelty, but as strength. We do not need to dominate others, for we have finally mastered ourselves, and that mastery is what makes the lion noble. To become the lion is not to abandon kindness, it is to purify it. For when kindness is given from weakness, it is manipulation, but when it is given from strength, it is true generosity. The lion does not fear giving, because it does not give to be liked. It gives because it wills it so. For until we become lions, we remain prey trapped in niceness, consumed by resentment, invisible in the crowd. But once we roar, once we stand, once we dare to claim our space in the world, we take the first true step into our own kingdom. The lion roars, no. It destroys the chains, shatters the prisons, and clears away the false morality of obedience. But destruction is not enough. A man cannot live forever by saying no. He must learn to say yes to himself, to life, to the creation of something new, and here lies the highest task, to create one's own values. For too long, we have lived under borrowed laws. Be nice, they told us. Be good, be agreeable, be selfless, be small. And so we obeyed, believing that these rules would give us love, respect, and meaning. But we found instead emptiness, resentment, and chains. Once we destroy these false rules, we stand in a terrifying place, a world without ready-made answers. This is the place of freedom, and freedom is not comfortable. It demands that we carve our own path, that we decide for ourselves what is worthy, what is sacred, what is worth living and dying for. No one else can hand this to us, not society, not family, not tradition. To live authentically, we must become the authors of our own law. To create values is not to invent excuses for selfishness. It is not to justify weakness. It is to look within and ask, what do I truly hold sacred? What principles do I stand upon even when the world shakes? What kind of man do I will myself to become? For some, it may be the value of courage, the refusal to bow in the face of fear. For others, the value of creation, the hunger to bring forth art, ideas, or beauty into the world. For another, the value of loyalty or honor, not because it is commanded, but because it is chosen freely. Whatever it is, it must come not from imitation, but from the depths of one's own being. This is what separates the creator from the prisoner. The prisoner lives by the rules handed down to him, obeying like a shadow. The creator forges his own path, and in doing so, becomes a light for others, not by trying to please them, but by daring to be true. And yet, creating values requires immense courage, for once you create them, you must live by them. No more hiding behind the excuse of, I was told to. No more shifting the blame onto tradition, or society, or others. To create values is to take complete responsibility for your life. It is to stand alone and declare, "This is my law, this is my path, this is who I am." The world will resist you. They will call you arrogant, dangerous, even mad. For nothing frightens the masses more than a man who no longer obeys their borrowed rules. But it is precisely this fear that confirms the truth: you are no longer bound by their chains. You are living by your own fire. And here is the beauty. Once you begin to live by values you have created, life transforms. Each day carries meaning because it reflects your will. Each action becomes purposeful because it flows from your truth. No more hollow niceness, no more borrowed morality, only the fierce joy of living a life that is truly yours. Creating your own values is not the end of the journey, but it is its highest expression. It is the moment when the lion becomes more than a destroyer, it becomes a builder. It is the moment when resentment is replaced by creativity, when weakness gives way to strength, when borrowed virtue is replaced by authentic greatness. For in the end, this is the essence of freedom, not simply to break chains, but to forge a crown. After the mask has been torn away, after the prison shattered, after resentment faced, after the lion's roar, after the birth of new values, what remains? What is the reward for this painful, dangerous, transformative path? It is not comfort, it is not safety. It is something far greater, the dance of life. Life, in its rawest form, is not meant to be tiptoed through cautiously. It is not meant to be lived as a performance for approval, nor as obedience to someone else's script. Life is a wild current, a dangerous storm, a song that demands movement. Those who cling to fear, to masks, to borrowed rules, they stumble stiffly through it, missing the music entirely. But those who embrace the fire of authenticity, who dare to create their own values, they do not merely walk through life, they dance. The dance of life is not about perfection, it is about presence. It is the ability to stand in the midst of uncertainty, in the chaos of existence, and still move boldly. It is the art of taking risks, of failing and rising again, of laughing even when the ground shakes beneath us. To dance with life is to say, I do not need guarantees, I do not need safety. I will live dangerously, because only danger awakens my soul. The nice man cannot dance. He moves only when others give him permission, always calculating, always careful, always afraid of making the wrong step. But the authentic man has learned that there are no wrong steps. There is only movement, only rhythm, only the continual act of becoming. And in this freedom, he discovers joy. Yes, joy. Not the shallow smile of approval, not the fleeting comfort of being liked, but the deep, resonant joy of living fully, fiercely, and without apology. The joy of knowing that even in pain, even in loss, even in struggle, he is alive and he is living by his own will. The dance of life is not about escaping struggle, it is about moving with it. The storm comes, and we dance in the rain. The fire burns, and we dance in its light. Death whispers, and we dance all the harder, knowing our time is short. For once we accept that life is fragile, fleeting, and wild, we stop waiting for the right moment. We realize the right moment has always been now. And so, the journey that began with niceness ends with greatness. Not the greatness of being admired, but the greatness of being real. Of living in truth, of roaring like the lion, of creating like the God within us, of dancing in the face of life's chaos. This is the opposite of being nice. This is being alive. And once you have danced in this way, even once, you will know the truth. There is no going back to the chains of niceness. For the dance of life is freedom itself, and freedom, once tasted, is impossible to forget.